Hi, and welcome to the Marketing for Book Coaches podcast. This is the place to be for you, the book coach who is trying to figure out your way in the tricky world of marketing. My name is Anne, and I am your host. In this episode, we will explore the unique challenges of using AI in your marketing as a book coach, while maintaining that also important personal touch that potential leads expect from you. And to discuss this topic, we are joined by a seasoned editor who is also an AI content policy consultant. She is a strong advocate for ethical AI use in editing and book coaching. She developed one of the first Gen AI content policies in the accounting industry. Settle in for a thought-provoking session with Amy Frushour Kelly. Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hi, Anne. I'm very glad to be here.
Well,
Thank
thank you so much for coming on the podcast because we all have so many questions about AI. We all think it's very easy to use AI, but we forget that also important aspect, which is the ethical use of AI. But before we dig in, how did you come to focus on the ethical aspect of AI?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've always been interested in artificial intelligence as a subject. And when ChatGPT was introduced in October of 2022, and it's amazing to think that that's less than 2 years ago.
Oh, we're going to say
When that happened, the tech geek in me just went crazy. I was so happy to get to experiment, and the editor in me was unnerved. And that was when I began to think, this could be an issue. This could be something where something very bad could happen. Bad actors could get involved and do something malevolent, do something that could, all kinds of things, the things that you might think would happen could happen, and
Mm.
some of them have happened. Then I got involved, if you're asking about getting involved in content policy, that October when it was released, ChatGPT was released, and I began playing with it, I was thinking, pretty soon, people are going to try to pass this off because it's always just so much easier to do something like that. And by February, someone had sent me something to edit that was definitely not written by a human being. Well, not written by that person, unless that person had suddenly started writing a completely different way. So there's a whole story that I could tell you. I'm not going to bore you with it, but in response to receiving that bit of copy and the experience that my director at the time, and I had with the person who had submitted it, and the fallout from that, I went ahead and decided to create a content policy, just outlining what was okay and what was not okay, because it didn't make sense if we had this new tool not to be able to use it. It had to be good for some things. It had to have some utility. And I didn't want to prevent people from being able to use it. So I wanted to have something that was out there that said, this is what you can do, this is what you can't, this is why, and this may change going forward. And that was apparently groundbreaking for someone to
Yes,
think
but
of
it
that.
it is, yeah, it is groundbreaking because when I heard first about you, I was thinking, oh wow, this is super niche. And it's not something we as small business owners don't think about. And that's also why I wanted you to come on the podcast, because as a book coach, of course, like you say, it's an easy tool, it's something that we should be using, but where are the limits? How far can we go? And most importantly, why is it so important that book coaches think about that ethical use? Because of the fact that they are book coaches.
Well, there are a couple of different reasons for doing that, for thinking about that. If you're thinking about what the book coach would be generating themselves to sell for themselves, then there are all kinds of different ways that you can generate material with the assistance of AI tools like ChatGPT and the usual ones, or using mass market tools that are like Zapier is a very popular one. There are others that are integrated through HubSpot. Those are big and available. They're expensive. They're very niche, much more niche than what I'm doing. And then there's the question of, how do you want to relate to your audience and to your clients? How do you want to come across to them? Do you want to be the person who gets in touch with them and says that I'm able to help you to create your book and market your book, but I don't have the time or the energy to actually write something myself to get you there, which doesn't make sense, right? So there does have to be that particular ethical part of the equation. There has to be that sort of human authenticity. And that's a term that you'll hear a lot in conversations about this. If you're using something like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or any of the number of different programs that are out there, generally there's human intervention is required at every single step. There is creating a prompt, the initial input into the program, evaluating what comes out, making a decision whether to continue with that and then continue the prompts until you get something that you like, or saying, no, this doesn't work, and redoing your own prompt. At every step of the way, there is an opportunity for a human to edit, to change, to make it really their own. And that is where, and I hope I'm answering your question the way that you were intending it. That's where you have the opportunity to turn it into something really authentic. Because if you're using it for something like ideation, something like give me, like prompting it to give you ideas for what your client base could be looking for, and then keywords or topics for blog posts or Substack articles. I remember that fantastic episode that you had just recently.
Oh, thank you so much for mentioning that. Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah, it was a great episode with Sarah, and I will put it in the links, by the way. So.
Oh, good. So if you're able to use generative AI tools in order to create ideas, to come up with ideas, or to come up with an outline for something, that's fantastic. That's ethical, and you're still able to use that as a framework to create something that's uniquely you and speaks to the people that you want to connect with. And that is something really great. However, it's also very easy to lean upon AI, or easy to just go ahead and use AI without really knowing how to use it. There are a number of people who I have seen their social media posts and their blogs, and I read it, and as an editor,
nobody
writes like that.
Exactly, because I'm on LinkedIn, and a couple of weeks ago, I literally had three very similar posts in my LinkedIn feed, and I was like, "This is you cannot say that it comes from yourself." So it really erodes the confidence you have in the person who posted as well, because you're like, "I know that you went completely through AI, even though we all use AI." But I like how you insist on that. That so many people don't know how to use it. So, uh, what would be your suggestion around this? Like, should they go on trainings, or what should they do, or what is the thinking process? Because of course, ChatGPT, you just go on it and you can start right away. But like you say, there's a difference between using it and knowing really how to use it.
Well, anybody can use, as you said, anybody can use ChatGPT. Not anybody can use it well. In order to do it, you can, there are YouTube tutorials, there are LinkedIn learning classes. There are some great courses out there. I don't want to be selling myself too much, but I do actually, I'm a guest lecturer on one particular course, which is AI for editors.
Yes,
It's not
that is not promotion, Amy, because this is one, like, I did that training myself, and that's how we met as well, by the way. Yeah,
Is it?
but yeah, we were both on the course.
We were at the same
We were
time.
both.
Oh my goodness. That's right. That's right. Okay. Okay. That
But
makes a
yeah,
lot of sense
absolutely.
now.
I was gonna say Aaron's course is amazing because it's so niche on AI for editors and book coaches. Yeah, and I think I can absolutely vouch for the course. She also came on the podcast, so I will put that episode as well in there. But yeah, it's actually a good.
Yes. She's excellent, and that is a very good course. It has evolved a great deal in the last year. And it definitely takes you past the beginner level through the intermediate, and there's going to be I've heard rumors that there will be something more advanced coming out. We'll see. But I am a guest lecturer for the ethics class in that. And the reason that I bring this up is that it is not unreasonable to get training in using AI. It's not as simple as just going onto ChatGPT or Claude or Mistral or whatever you're using wherever in the world you are, and just typing in, solve this equation for me, or how many husbands did Elizabeth Taylor have, or what
Eight, no?
is the, yeah, well, was it 8 or was it 7?
I had a hesitation as well. Oh, ChatGPT will have to ask. The most important info that you will get from this episode: how many husbands did Elizabeth Taylor have?
Right, right. So does Richard Burton, or whatever his name was, does he count as 2 husbands or just 1?
The dilemma.
That's my question. Yeah. So it's not the easiest program to use. You get, just because you tell it what you want doesn't mean that it understands what you want. You're not always the best communicator that you think you are. I know that's true of me. My family tells me that, and that's definitely true with ChatGPT. It does not understand what you want. It understands what it thinks you want. So I would say that if you want to learn how to use these things well, and you cannot afford to take a class, or you don't have the bandwidth to do so, I would say get onto ChatGPT or whatever and just start working with it and experimenting for like 20 minutes a day. if you have that kind of time, just for a few weeks, push the boundaries, take a look, try asking it to do anything. Tell it that it's the world's best book coach, that it's almost as good as Anne is, almost as good as you are.
Oh,
and
I love that.
say, this is you, and you are going to, whatever it is that a book coach really, really, really wants to do, just more than anything. And then answer that question. Just play around with things like that. Tell it who it is so that it knows who to answer as. Role play like that. That's one of the things that you can experiment with. You can experiment with telling it, giving it a number of different phrases and ideas that you have, and asking it to assemble them into some sort of coherent paragraph or a summary or some bullet points. There are all kinds of things that you can do, and they're not going to come out very well at first, because a lot of it is creativity. It's an art, not a science.
Yeah. Especially I've used ChatGPT for practically more than a year now. And it's still training on how I sound, what is my voice, because the specificities, like English is not my mother tongue, so I also feel things. It's something you have to train day in, day out.
Yeah. And I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was thinking something else would come up. Okay, so
we're having too much fun.
Yeah, I think we're having too much fun here. So as a book coach, we now know that we cannot use AI for all of our content, that we should continue focusing on that human authenticity element. We also know that it's not as simple as going on ChatGPT, that having a training or some feedback is always very useful. But now, if we have that training and we have that consciousness of like human authenticity, how do you concretely start using AI for our marketing? Do we set up, for example, an ethical standards book or something like this for our business? How do we go around that?
Well, that's a content policy, kind of. It's the list, like I was saying about what I initially did for a content policy, creating a set of guidelines about what's appropriate, what's not, what risk level you're willing to tolerate, because there are many, many different risks associated with it. Like with anything. I mean, any kind of technology you have risks with. Any kind of communication, you've got certain risks. And some of the risks are much more concerning than others. So, for instance, I'm going to give an example from when I was younger, and a friend's father, who was an editor, a newspaper editor, was uncomfortable with the idea of switching over to computers from his typewriter. And his reasoning for that was that if he lost his typewriter, if it broke down, it was fine. He would just get another one. But at the time, if his computer broke down, it was like his entire file cabinet was gone. He would not be able to rebuild it. And that is, that really dates me, I know, but that also is...
Don't worry, I remember typewriters as well.
But that kind of risk is something that should be taken into account. That's not necessarily the risk or a risk you would be encountering with AI, but it is a risk. You encounter risks of inadvertently amplifying some sort of bias, for instance, when you are sending out, when you're creating some sort of market copy. It's possible that you're inadvertently marketing to an audience that is disproportionately one race or one color or one age, and may not actually be the people that you are trying to reach. And you could be excluding whole populations of people who would be terrific for you and you would be terrific for. So that's one risk. And another thing that you would be considering that could be in this policy is, how could you hurt people? What would you do using this technology that might actually compromise the safety or integrity of your clients or your readers, or compromise your reputation? There are things that can happen.
And in that case, it's in your prompt, like you have this, you insert it. Like, for example, I like this example where you say, okay, you might end marketing without using marketing language that addresses one market and not another one, because you're continuing with that bias. So is you do a specific rule of like, I want you to keep an open mind, or how would that work?
It really sort of depends on the chain of prompts that you're going to use, because for something like that, you're not going to do a one and done. It's not just one prompt that you use and then everything's finished. There's a whole chain of prompts and responses. So it's sort of a collaborative process. But one of the things that could certainly result in harm is writing things and just shortcutting, just saying, I'm in a hurry, I'm going to put this out. And perhaps you haven't fact checked it, perhaps you haven't verified it or proofread it or goodness knows what else. And it says something ridiculous or harmful or just inaccurate. These things happen, and that is a risk. It's a risk because of your behavior as well. So that's a risk that can be foreseen, and it can be mitigated or prevented because it's something that can be foreseen. And that is something that you would put into your policy. And
so the thing that you put
avoid
in your
harm.
policy is of like, we don't do the post just on ChatGPT and then we copy and paste. We go over it, we read it, we fact check things.
Always. You have to be accountable, and you have to be as responsible with this content as you would be if you were writing it yourself, because you want to have, again, that human authenticity. And if you're copy pasting from ChatGPT, you're not doing the human authenticity.
Yeah, and I mean, I love that we end the interview with the same thing that we started, that ChatGPT is a great tool, but let's not forget that what your leads are expecting from you is to have that human connection. And then if you have that kind of post out there that, like you say, can be very offensive to one person, of course you're going to lose that lead, while it might have been someone just perfect for your business.
Right. And let's just take this one step further, just while we're on this thought. The people who are looking for the content that you produce, especially if you write an article or a Substack or whatever that people are going to be reading, they're looking at that because they want to read something by an expert, right? They have a reasonable expectation of original thought from an expert, thought leadership. if they are reading instead something that is in whole or in substance written by a program, and that is discovered, the damage to your reputation, to your business, and to your colleagues who may have supported you, to your clients from the past, it's just no good for anybody. So that's again an argument for authenticity.
Yes, and I love that. I love that concept. It always comes to the authenticity. Amy, I would love to continue asking questions to you because you're just like this Pandora box of knowledge. Just one last question. So if as a book coach we use AI, should we put that out there and inform our leads?
Well, it does depend, I think, upon what you are producing and to what extent it's been used. If you are using it to write entire sentences or paragraphs of what you are putting out as thought leadership, that is definitely something that you should be disclosing. However, if you are doing social media posts, like, for instance, this is way back Wednesday, what were you doing 3 years ago today? Something like that. I don't think that that's something to be concerned about. If you're using AI for ideation, to come up with ideas, if you're going to use it for formatting or for organizing your draft or for some paraphrasal, that's, you can choose your line. You can choose your line on that. For actually writing paragraphs, maybe more than a sentence, I would feel uncomfortable. But then again, it depends if you get caught. So
I love that. It depends if you get caught. Yeah.
I know.
It is a tricky thing for an editor or a book coach because we are like, this is the writing industry, right? So I feel like I've always had less difficulties with someone who I know who's a hairdresser or for who eventually what is more important is how they cut the hair. But if you are an editor or a book coach, like you say, you want to see also a little bit of your writing touch and you're literally feeling for things.
Yeah, that's what you're selling. If you are a hairstylist and your kids are walking around with horrible haircuts, well, I don't know if
that is an amazing example. I'm going to use that one.
But I mean, in the same way, your writing is your baby, right? And I don't know. Now we're having way too much fun here.
It's like you say, it's the same, right? If you see an editor or a book coach who only puts out their marketing pieces that have been done by ChatGPT, you can wonder a little bit about how are you going to use my text? Are you going to put it to ChatGPT as well? Because you're only using it, well, that's only the thing that you use and you don't put down your own writing, or are you going to really be focused on what I am giving you to have a look at?
Yeah. Or you could use it when you're using your marketing material. When you're writing your marketing material or your blog or whatever, you can say, and this was created with the assistance of whatever tool to do this. And that is part of how I can collaborate with you if you are already using these tools. I'm already that AI literate.
I love that idea. Yeah, that is absolutely amazing because I think book coaches and editors have the issue that we've discussed about, but writers absolutely have that same issue as well. So how ethical is it to use AI in their writing? I really love that, Amy. So that is going to be the end of all the questions for you. So as a little resume, the three most important points that we discussed about is one, human authenticity. Never forget that ChatGPT is great, but what leads want is you and your input. Two, learn how to use ChatGPT. It's not that easy. You want to make sure that you can really use it well in your business. And three, write up a content guide. And talking about content guide, you coincidentally are launching a course on how to set up content guides just for editors and book coaches.
I do. I have AI content policy for editors. We have had 2 courses run, and I think we've hit our stride. I have changed up the course material and presentation a bit, but we are beginning to accept for September and October. It's a 3-week class, 3 classes, and
what are you going to discuss
recordings
during the course? Sorry, I've been interrupting.
We start out with talking about what a policy is, why it's important, why it can vary so much from organization to organization. Because if you're a freelance editor or book coach working on your own, your access to technology and your client base and your resources are going to be vastly different than if you're at Penguin Random House. It's completely different. So size matters. So we talk about why there are different types of content policies. We talk about what should be addressed in them at various levels. We talk about how to assess risks, and then we talk about future-proofing them, making sure that they're adaptable, because the technology is changing very, very quickly. Cultural expectations are changing very quickly, and I think that professional standards are going to change very quickly. And so therefore, it's really important to build an adaptable document and also write something in so that you understand how it's going to be, how you're going to keep this policy, this workflow consistent and keep it up, because a policy is no good if you're not going to go with it, if you're not going to abide by it. But also, how is it going to work in the future? How is it going to grow with you if you're going to grow? So these are important questions, and people should come out of it with everything they need to know, hopefully everything they need to know to do this.
Oh, I think that's just a great opportunity. And so you will find the link in the description as well. What is the best place to connect with you or learn more about what you do and your work?
I am on LinkedIn, of course, and I recently joined Threads. So after leaving Twitter a couple of years ago, I don't know if you heard there was a change in Twitter.
Yes.
And
yes. I always get lots of feedback on that one. I'm not on Twitter, never been. So.
Okay, well, I'm on Threads now, and I think I've made 2 posts. So.
Yay, Amy, good.
Yeah. So you can find me there, or you can just find me on LinkedIn. That's generally the best place.
Okay, perfect.
And thank you.
Oh, no worries. So all the links that Amy discussed as well, we previously talked about some of the AI tools. You will find all of that in the description. And I'm sure that Amy's course is going to be great. And a very necessary tool in each business of an editor or book coach, or even me, actually, even as a business coach, it's important to have that content policy in place. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Marketing for Book Coaches. If you enjoyed our chat and you want more business tips and tricks, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. You'll get exclusive content, and you will be also the first to know if there are new little things coming up in my business. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you so much, Amy, for having joined us. Remember, use AI wisely, stay authentic, and keep building those genuine connections. Until next time, thank you. Bye-bye.